Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Macaw Podcast Universe. I am one of your hosts. My name is Micah Macaw.
And I'm the other host, Jordan Macaw.
And we got married September 30th, 2017, 2.5 years ago, and we haven't looked back since.
Nope.
And one of the most important rites of passages in today's day and age, I almost said age, is if you are married, you at some point start a podcast. Paul F. Tompkins did it. We're doing it now.
That's not his wife he has a podcast with.
Wasn't that the Paul F. Stayenkins? That new one that he just came out with?
I didn't know about that one. I thought you meant about the Good Neighbor one with that lady.
No. I meant that. So
wait, they created a podcast? Is it real?
Yeah. They did it like last week.
Oh, I want to listen to that.
It's about like staying home. It's called Paul F. Stay Homekins or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna look it up.
Okay.
And download the first episode.
So we are here. We're trapped in our homes. And we're not complaining about that, but hopefully we can bring you a little bit of joy and a little breakup of your schedule to talk about one of the worst movies we've covered on this series. Now, before we do that, I should say, for you new listeners, this is a show where we go through film series and we go through them one movie at a time and we decide what's good, what's bad, how they interrelate, how it works as a franchise. We love franchises. And we exist to prove people wrong when they say sequels are never better than the originals. So, today we are on our third episode of Maximum Teenage Angst Overdrive, the series that is the Twilight series. And we are on Twilight Eclipse. Now, Jordan, would you like to tell me your relationship to this movie?
I hate it.
I don't know, but like when you first saw it and all that stuff.
I don't remember when I saw it. I saw them all in theaters.
Oh, okay.
I think that this one is apparently blocked most from my memory.
Okay.
Well. I think that while we were watching it, it was like the last two movies have been a flood of nostalgia and emotions. And it was like, oh, I was feeling this when I watched this part. But it was also like watching it for the first time in a lot of ways too. So
wait, were you remembering it this time or you weren't?
I was like remembering it. I think I forgot a lot of stuff that happened in this movie, partly because it's so filler.
Yeah, it's not good.
I don't remember the Riley stuff at all, which I'm sure is in the books.
Wait, who's Riley?
The vampire that was like creating the army. I'm sure that's in the books. Why wouldn't it be? It was I guess a big plot point. But you're just watching and you're like, who cares about this dude? He dies anyway. Whatever, we'll get into it.
We will. My relationship is until 2 weeks ago, or actually last week for us, this was the only Twilight movie that I'd ever seen. And I mentioned last episode, but I'll bring it up again. I liked this girl, and my buddy Jordan Hamasu also did, which maybe I shouldn't have name dropped him. But I think he was more on the like, I might like this girl, I'm not sure. And I was like, oh, I like this girl. And she wanted to go, she was going with friends to see Twilight Eclipse. So this is kind of the best way to experience it. I sat on one side, he sat on the other side, and we sat there watching this movie that neither of us wanted to watch. And in a way, one of us was an Edward and the other was a Jacob. But neither of us got with that girl. And so I guess that makes us more like her friend in New Moon, who she goes to the movies with. Mike. Yeah. So that's my relationship. And usually, not to toot my own dang horn, but I have a pretty good visual recall when it comes to movies. So I would say very good even. But I didn't recognize anything from this movie until it got to where they were when I saw the tent. That's when I finally said, "Oh, okay, I remember this." Nothing else. It was kind of wild.
Yeah, I think that was kind of similar.
Yeah,
with that.
So let's jump into the notes, everybody. So this is directed by David Slade. This is the third movie, and it's the third director, different director again. Now, the reason we have a new director is Chris Weitz was in post-production on New Moon, and they wanted to get the ball rolling on this movie, so they started.
So they didn't care about his vision for another movie?
I didn't. The way it was written, it didn't seem like that was an issue.
That sucks, man. Because at least this movie would have looked better.
Yeah. More on this later. Keep that thought. So David Slade, he directed one episode of Breaking Bad. It's in season 4. It's called Open House. I believe it's the episode where
is Marie going to people's houses?
Well, she starts stealing again.
Yeah.
And then it's the episode where oh my gosh, what is his name? Not Walt, but Jesse. Jesse is in his house, and there's like a ton of people in the house, and he's just like not. He is just
Doesn't
so
care.
unpleasant and unhappy. It's a really great episode.
Is that right after Jane dies?
No, this is season 4, so this is like 2 seasons after that.
Gosh.
She dies in 2.
Oh my gosh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that soon.
Yeah, because remember, she dies, and then Walt meets like the airplane guy in the bar, and he's distracted because his daughter just died, and he went to work, and those planes crash.
Yes, right.
And then there's the foreshadowing with the teddy bear.
Yes.
Oh, it's so cool. So he did do that, and he also directed the Black Mirror Bandersnatch episode that came out last year. Was that last year? The one where you could like interactively do it on Netflix?
I think so.
He directed some episodes of Hannibal, some episodes of American Gods, 30 Days of Night, Hard Candy, and then
30 Days of Night is that vampire movie.
It is, okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about this show called Awake, which I think I've told you about. It has
Lucius Malfoy.
Yeah,
but,
he's in it. And
what's that guy's name?
I don't
I'm
remember
never
what his
gonna
name
remember
is.
his name at this point.
But I don't know. We actually might have talked about this in Chamber of Secrets, but it was this show where this guy, like, I think he got in a car wreck or something, and like in one, like when he would go to bed, he would wake up as this one guy, and his family was a certain way, and he was like solving crimes, I think. And then because of course in this time period, like the 2000s, early 2000s,
everyone was a detective.
Everyone was some sort of weird quasi detective.
Yeah.
And then he would go to sleep and he'd wake up and it would be like normal him, but I think he was like committing the crimes, maybe something.
That's interesting.
Maybe something like that. And the show didn't do super well.
Yeah, I remember seeing trailers and thinking that looked cool.
But I watched it for a little bit and then I just kind of fell off of it. And I just remember Jack O'Hara he was just like, I love how that show ended because they only had one season, and he said they just did the stupid thing that you're never supposed to do that always sucks, where then he woke up from both things and he was in a coma the whole time.
They were like, screw it, we're getting canceled anyway.
Yeah, and he's like, that's the dumbest thing. I hate when that happens. And he liked it because it was so stupid.
Right.
So anyway, he directed an episode of that. This is again produced by Wick Godfrey and Karen Rosenfeld. Screenplay by Melissa Rosenberg again. And then this was shocking to both of us. The music is by Howard Shore, who did Spotlight, Denial, Hugo, The Departed, and of course, the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the Hobbit trilogy. What's weird, though, is if you hearken your ears while you're watching this movie, there are a couple times where you can kind of hear, in my opinion, it sounds like he's just like, oh, what was that like scratch track from Lord of the Rings that was almost the Uruk-hai theme? Let's just throw that in there.
Yeah, very much so. Very half-assed job.
Yeah, I didn't like it. And then here's what's weird. You were speaking about how the movie looks. Same cinematographer as New Moon.
Do you think that's part of the director, though? Them collaborating?
It's
Maybe
gotta
it was
be.
a bad collaboration?
Actually, you know what? So he did do a couple of movies, but he does have... Yeah, but all those shows are after Twilight. I was going to say, because the movie does look like a TV show, but those are all shows that, besides Awake, that are like, have like a pretty artistic vision and don't look like classic TV shows. So I guess that theory doesn't hold up.
Yeah, this movie looks like a daytime, just TV made movie. Movie made for TV. It looks bad.
The shots are very,
So like,
they're just very like
what's interesting
main
is
shot,
in the
actor,
last movie, there were a lot of interesting shots.
Yeah.
And there were no interesting shots. So was that more of the director's call in the last movie?
It must have been.
Because I know cinematographer focuses on how it looks down to like what lens they use.
Right.
So if he's the same cinematographer, why choose? I mean, we don't even know if he did or not. But it's like, why would you choose a different lens?
I know.
And sometimes I mean, Why would you choose a different lens if you've already done another movie in the series and it looked really good and I feel like in a way captured the feelings very well?
And there's some cool like artistic shots.
Yeah, but this is not.
But I mean, I would imagine that like a lot of those artistic shots, those do have to be, those are gotta be the director vision.
Collaboration too.
Yeah. It looks very normal.
Yeah.
In a very bad way.
And I guess let's just get onto this for a second.
Yeah.
The makeup is probably worse than the first movie.
It's
Makeup
very
and
weird.
hair. Edward's hair. Oh yeah, Edward has sideburns in this movie. Looks really effing bad. Also, Bella, you're looking at her and you're like, she has to be wearing a wig. Like it's like her skin and then the hairline, but like it looks like the hairline is penciled onto her hair. So it's like, could she be wearing a wig? But I don't think she is. I think that her hair is very styled in this movie and like very well done. When in the previous movies, she just had long hair and it was like, you didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
Hardly, because she's just a girl with hair. This is like, they spent time on her hair. It is soft. It is flowy. The other movies, it's kind of like thick and heavy. Also, like I said, the hairline is just like so distracting.
It's very odd.
It's so distracting. And I'd say, I mean, I guess she was probably the most glaringly terrible makeup and hair throughout the whole movie, with the exception of Edward's sideburns. I feel like all the
girls looked kind of like they were all wearing wigs.
I think the makeup and hair were really bad, coupled with how bad the movie looked.
Yeah.
Because of the way the movie was colored or something, it made all of the hair and makeup look even worse.
Yeah.
It looked like someone was so inexperienced who did it.
Well, and remember the last movie was shot on film. I don't think this one was.
Yeah.
Which maybe had a subtle difference to it.
Maybe, because it just totally rips you out of it.
Yeah.
I mean, the story does it too. It rips you out of it. But this doesn't even like hold your attention. Because it's like, you're not supposed to notice hair and makeup. That's the whole point.
No.
Unless it's like a huge bombastic movie. That's different.
Yeah.
But we're talking about a young adult romance movie. I'm not supposed to notice her hair or her makeup. That's also supposed to be like back of my head. Manipulate me in the back of my mind.
Yeah.
Not the front of it. Don't make me notice what you're trying to do to me. I'm done with
it. So we will not mention the costume and hair design. It's produced by Temple Hill, Maverick, Imprint, Sunswept. Those are the same as the last two, or the last one. Distributed by Summit. This movie comes out June 30th, 2010. So it's been 8, 9, 10. And I think it's 11, 12, and then they're done. They put these out 1 year after the other. $68 million budget. And it makes $300,531,751. And then worldwide, the movie makes $698,491,347.
Whatever.
So now I got to read a quote from the director. And this is kind of like, if you've listened to this podcast for any amount of time, you're going to know why I don't like this. He said this: "The Eclipse story and the way we approach the film calls for a much more realistic approach."
Well, we already just complained about how many things were not realistic.
So there's that. And also, again, folks, if you're making something that's fantasy, you don't have to make it realistic. You just have to make it follow the rules that are in the world that you've created.
And the story baseline source material is not realistic.
Yeah, because the motives and stuff don't make any sense.
No.
So you, as a filmmaker, like it makes you look back at the first movie and kind of appreciate the fact that that first director, Catherine whatever, was able to just be like, just ham it up.
Yeah.
Because like she kind of understood the source material a little better.
And I'm saying, if anyone is wanting a true vampire, like I think an actual good representation of a relationship, let me in. Recently rewatched it with Lauren. And it's the main, it's like when I saw that movie, it was around the time all these movies were coming out, and it's a horror movie, and the two main characters are two children. But it's like when I watched it, I was like, this is what I've been wanting from the Twilight movies, which of course from book and movie one, you're not going to get what this movie was. But Let Me In is like, It actually has something to say about relationships, parents. It takes place it's originally a Swedish book that was then adapted into a French movie, and then there's an American movie, which is the one that I'm referring to. And I haven't thought about it too much, but like it takes place in the 80s. There's a lot of like Ronald Reagan speeches going on, and there's like political context added to it as well. Like it's making statements.
I still have yet to see this movie.
With using a like old legend vampire. And it's so freaking good. The other version of a vampire, like real applications, is What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a mockumentary by Taika Waititi, Jermaine Clement. And it's one of the funniest movies ever. But what's so funny about it is they're showing basically the pros and cons of being a vampire.
Yeah, that's like the best.
Yeah.
Although I haven't seen Let Me In.
Yeah.
And there's also a TV show of What We Do in the Shadows, and it's right on par with the movie. It's amazing. Can't wait for season 2. Yeah. By the time this comes out, I think it's out. So
if that guy wants realistic, he should have been involved in these other projects.
Now there's an actress that's new in this movie.
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Who we know from The Village.
Hey, it's not my turn.
Oh, is that your only person you're going to do?
I was going to go over one other person.
Oh, okay. Well, we know her from stuff. And stick around to hear what Jordan has to say. But Rochelle Lefebvre was the girl who played Victoria in the previous 2 movies and was replaced by Bryce Dallas Howard. The studio said, hey, we're replacing her. There was a scheduling conflict. That was that.
Bummer.
She responded, I was stunned by Summit's decision to recast the role. I was fully committed to the Twilight Saga and to the portrayal of Victoria. Summit said they had a conflict during those 10 days and would not accommodate me. Given the length of filming for Eclipse, never did I fathom I would lose the role. I am greatly saddened that I will not be able to complete my portrayal of Victoria for the Twilight audience. And then Summit responded, Summit had acted in good faith that Lefebvre would be available to fulfill her obligations both in terms of rehearsals and shooting availability for Eclipse. Contrary to Miss Lefebvre's statement, it is simply untrue that we dismissed her over a 10-day overlap. It is not about a 10-day overlap, but instead about the fact that the Twilight Saga Eclipse is an ensemble production that has to accommodate the schedules of numerous actors while respecting the established creative vision of the filmmaker and, most importantly, the story. Ms. Lefebvre's commitment to the other project, which she chose to withhold from Summit until the last possible moment, makes her unfortunately unavailable to perform the role of Victoria. Which I'm just going to guess means that they just were tired of working with her.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then...
Well, she wouldn't tell him what she was working on.
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't trust NDAs. The studio. You know what I mean? So there was this thing, and I was trying to figure this out. So right around this time, there's this influx of, are you Team Edward? Are you Team Jacob? And I was trying to find the source of this, and the best I could find was Burger King ads. And they had merch, including eco-friendly water bottles, that you could get based on if you were Team Edward or Team Jacob. And they had all these different things. There's these weird commercials where grandparents are like fighting over Team Edward and Team Jacob stuff. They're not that weird. They make sense. And if I think we will have one that played before our intro this time for fun. But the best I could trace it back to was actually, I think that this began in the books, like from the book fandom. Because in 2008, when there was an election, there was this poll on like the fan website that was like, are you Team Edward? Are you Team Jacob? Do your poll. And so I guess it's just been a thing this whole time. But I also found out about this, and I am on this team, I have to say. I thought I was Team Edward, but there is Team Tyler's van. And that team are everyone that believes that they just wish Edward hadn't stopped the van and it would have killed Bella.
Wow, that's so funny.
That's pretty funny.
I've never heard of that.
Team Tyler's van. So, and then finally, let's see what Roger Ebert has to say about the movie. And then you jump in with your actors. The audience watched this film with rapt attention. They obviously had a deep understanding of the story, which is just as well, because I don't think anyone not intimately familiar with the earlier installments could make heads or tails of the opening scenes. The Twilight movies are chaste eroticism to fuel adolescent dreams and are really about Bella being attracted and titillated and aroused and tempted up to the very brink of surrender. And then, well, no, she shouldn't. And that was the end of his review.
Wow.
He was not a fan.
Yeah. How many stars?
I didn't write that down.
Doesn't matter. Yeah.
I think it was 1.5 or 2. So that's what I got. Hit me with those actors.
Okay, so the first one I'm going over is Xavier Samuel, who plays Riley, the dude who becomes a vampire and creates the army.
Oh, okay.
Apparently he is in a production of Frankenstein, a 2015 movie.
Is that a production or a movie?
Well, a movie.
That's the one with Daniel Radcliffe.
No, it's not. That's what I'm confused about. A married couple of scientists create a modern day monster. It has the girl from Memento in it.
Oh,
also, the guy in Succession who was kind of like an advisor in the second season with Brian Cox.
Yeah.
He had a really great voice.
I can see him. He's the guy who's in like The Dark Knight Rises, right?
He is. Who is he?
Isn't he one of the guys that is like at Harvey Dent's funeral? He kind of says, "Looks like things aren't really happening."
Oh my gosh, I never realized.
I think that's him anyway.
That guy is in it. I mean, it's not immediately available on his IMDb, but I'm just going to assume that you're right. That's crazy. Anyway, oops, I clicked on a picture. Okay, so yeah, I wonder if it was a TV thing, but then again, I don't know. Doesn't even have a Metascore. And then he's also in Fury, Love and Friendship, and that's all I really care to talk about. And then let's go to Bryce Dallas Howard. So she, as already said, is in The Village.
Yep.
She's also in Arrested Development. Yeah.
Well, I mean, she's in one episode.
I know. It just came to my mind immediately.
Oh, okay. I was just thinking that was like her most, and that'd be
She's
crazy.
in Rocket Man.
Yeah, she's his mom.
Oh, yeah. Okay, she's in Jurassic World. I think a lot of people were like, okay, that's the girl from Jurassic World.
And you know her name is Claire Danes in that movie.
Claire Dearing
and Owen Grady, which I was listening to Podcast The Ride, and they went off on a tangent about how those are like the worst names, but they were being very sarcastic about it. Like, oh yeah, you know, everyone's favorite Owen Grady and Claire Dearing.
Oh, that's right. She's in 50-50. She's the bad girlfriend.
Yeah, that's the first movie I saw her in.
Me too. She's also in...
No, actually, The Village was. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Me too. She is in Hereafter, Terminator Salvation, Spider-Man 3. She's Gwen Stacy.
That might have been the first thing I saw her in.
She is the titular Lady in the Water.
Yes.
She is also, she's in A Beautiful Mind. Oh, she's an uncredited Harvard student. But that would make sense because her daddy directed the movie,
yeah.
Ron Howard, who also is Opie. And then, she's also a Who in How the Grinch Stole Christmas somewhere in the background.
Is she really?
She must be pretty young. She's surprised too, and the credit was Bryce Howard.
Okay.
She was born in 1981. Yeah, she'd be pretty young for that.
So, did you know?
Wait. Going back to the hair and makeup thing, her hair is so bad. Her makeup is so bad. It looks like a TV show, Get Up. Also, she's naturally redheaded, and I think she was wearing a wig. I think she was wearing a redhead wig, but she is
crazy.
A redhead. Because the hair was not moving like normal hair would. It's either that or the only other explanation is they use so much hairspray in her hair that they use an entire can every day of shooting.
I could buy that.
And you go ahead.
I was gonna say, this is like a pop quiz, and maybe the audience will be able to guess this before you do. So, cue the music, maybe Micah, if you remember to do it. Do you know what 3-part series is possible that we could cover that's directed by Ron Howard? Trilogy.
Have I seen it?
I don't think you've seen any of them. I haven't seen
Do
any
I know
of them.
they exist?
Definitely.
Are they bad?
I think they have a very odd reputation. I'm not sure what I think. Like critically, not people don't really like them, and I don't think people like them anymore. But when the first movie came out, it was big. The second movie came out, it was big. The third movie, most people don't remember came out.
He didn't do Santa Claus, did he? Oh no, we've seen that. Who was in it?
I'm trying to not give away. I know Paul Bettany is in the first movie for sure.
That you couldn't have given me a more obscure person.
America's Dad is in all three of them.
America's Dad. It's America's Dad. Oh, okay. He's in all three of them?
Uh-huh.
I mean, I know that guy from Super 8.
No, America's Dad.
Oh, that guy's America's Dad. So,
well, that's what
recently
we dubbed. Okay, so what we have now dubbed after A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood,
so
America's
Tom Hanks
grandpa.
is in it.
America's grandfather.
Tom Hanks is in a trilogy of something?
He is.
How old is it?
Think Indiana Jones / National Treasure.
He did the Da Vinci Code?
He did all three Da Vinci Code movies.
I didn't know he did the Da Vinci Code.
Which maybe we'll cover at some point. I think it's kind of low on our list of things we want to do, but...
I've seen big chunks of pretty much like the first two movies, I think.
Okay.
But I was like young, and they couldn't be more boring. Couldn't have been more boring to a kid.
Yeah.
So I feel like they were the adults' version of National Treasure.
Yeah, okay.
Also, I remember being a kid and Da Vinci Code had come out, and people were saying it's a bad book because it said things that weren't right about the Bible, or like it bent history or something.
Well, yeah, I grew up. I thought that the Da Vinci Code was like some guy had historically like looked up all this stuff, and he had this code for like why Jesus was not the Son of God.
That's right.
And then I grow up and I'm like, wait, it was an adventure airport novel about a guy who's like following treasure that is written in on like the last Passover painting. I'm like, how was that the message, that it was like an anti-Christian?
I think one radical person
just
hears
said
it
and said it loud
and
enough.
then because it's how rumors spread, it gets to a point where people think it's real.
Yeah, and then no one reads it because they're like, it's bad, you're not supposed to. And then it's like, oh, if you just read it, it's just reading. It's probably the same quote-unquote sacrilegiousness that is in Indiana Jones with the Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably like the exact same thing.
If the only thing that's different is Raiders of the Lost Ark is more campy.
Yeah. I would hope that those are campy movies, but I don't know.
Not from the sense I got as a child, though.
As a child. You were a child.
So
since we want to keep pushing off talking about this movie, what Ron Howard's career? It's very odd.
Yeah. I think. Well, my opinion on Ron Howard.
Yes.
Is he makes good movies,
but not great.
I don't know if he's made great movies, because every time I see a Ron Howard movie, it was like, yeah, that was really good, and then I forget that I saw it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Rush, which I've heard is
Rush
great,
is really good,
and I've still never seen it.
We should borrow that from my sister, because that's one of my sister's favorites.
Yeah.
And, she was like hyping it a lot before I saw it, and I still thought it was really, really good.
It's got one of my favorite guys in it. I just missed the movie. Daniel Bruhl.
Daniel Bruhl, yeah. No, it's really good. And then it's like the serious Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be a fun trilogy. Would be Talladega Nights, Ford vs. Ferrari, and Rush. If you watched all those movies,
have we discussed doing the Edgar Wright trilogy and treating it like one?
We have discussed it. Yeah, off mic.
Would we ever do it?
I think we could.
What about the Revenge trilogy?
We've talked about that several times. Last time I brought it up, though, you said you didn't want to do it.
Finding out that King Ho's song is in one of them, back on the table.
I think the Revenge trilogy, which, if you're unaware, folks, that's a trilogy. I almost said from North Korea, but from South Korea. That is, they're not one series, but it's a director's like take on the genre of revenge.
Yeah.
And they're very, very good movies. The thing that I would be unsure about covering is they're just really graphic, and they're very. I mean, Old Boy in particular is a movie that when I finished it the first time, I did watch it twice. I felt sick to my stomach. I had a pit in my stomach, and I felt really bad.
I think because you warned me so heavily about it, I didn't
Oh, really?
feel that way when I saw it. And that used to be my favorite foreign film until Parasite,
Yeah.
which is another Korean movie. But yeah, I mean, they all are have some pretty graphic stuff in it.
Yeah.
Violence especially. But with that being said,
Sympathy for Lady Vengeance.
I know, that's the one I'm thinking
it's just
of.
called Lady Vengeance. I think.
Yeah.
That movie is. It was like almost as disturbing to me as Old Boy. Like
that one's very violent.
Those two movies and Rosemary's Baby kind of for me are like, well, and Hereditary are up there on like movies where it's just like that did something that other movies haven't done to me.
But the argument with that trilogy is it is so artistically done.
Yeah.
Because like Old Boy, for example, is like very action heavy. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of shots with the action that you don't get in your typical action movie. Like the hallway scene. Oh, yeah. It's like, I've never seen this before. Yeah. This is it's amazing. Very cool. And I mean, even though like Old Boy is really disturbing, I do think the story is really interesting. I'm not saying these are bad in any way. No, I know you're not. They're masterpieces. Because I'm kind of usually a sucker for anything that's a retelling of something else. Mm-hmm. If you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. So it's like flipping it on its head kind of thing. Yeah, just like interesting take on this. So I would consider doing it not like anytime. Like obviously we're not going to pull the trigger on it today. No. Or anything. Well, I kind of, at least for a little bit, it'd be nice to stick to like movies that are like technically and like actually sequels of each other and franchises. Yeah. And I want to cover the Before trilogy before we cover either of those. Well, yeah, that one's much more of a trilogy. Yeah. So, yeah, other movies that Ron Howard has done that are good, but nothing I would write home about. Well, it's just interesting because they're pretty dang good. Like, I liked Solo. Yeah, I liked Solo. If I never watch it again, though, that's okay. But Solo is one of these, though. It's not like, I like Solo. It's, I like Solo. You have to go a little bit higher pitched. In the Heart of the Sea looked so boring to me. That looked very boring. But that's mostly because I'm not interested in Moby Dick. Mm-hmm. I think I've heard that movie's pretty good, actually. I think I've heard it's very boring and not good. Yeah. But, he did Cinderella Man. I've never seen that. That's a good movie. A Beautiful Mind, it might be his best movie. He did Ransom. That one actually, I think, falls into like, it's a good movie. He did Backdraft, which was a huge Universal Studios demonstration. What does that mean? So when you went to Universal Studios, you get to do like some walkthroughs, and there was one for Backdraft. And when did this movie come out? 1991. Man, I didn't go to Universal until the 2000s. That was there for a long time. Whoa. But it was basically, I learned a lot when like a door is hot, so there's a fire going on, and a door is hot, obviously you shouldn't open it because there's a fire behind it, but sometimes you can't tell, but when you feel air being sucked into it and you open the door, fire's just going to explode out. And they demonstrated it. And it was cool. Pretty dang cool. A big fire. He did Willow. Willow is not like a great movie, but it's fun. Very charming. I've never seen Cocoon. Yeah, I've never seen that either. But yeah, I'd say like all these, it's kind of like, yeah, those are good. I mean, my personal favorite is How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Which, folks, that's a bad movie. This is, last time we watched it, Micah fell asleep because he was so bored, and I was still laughing out loud. Yeah. Because I love it so much. I side with Roger Ebert on that movie. He didn't like it. Whatever. Okay, so let's talk about Twilight. So, the movie starts with this man like on a dock or something. He's like at a port, and so instead of a vampire just running up to him and sucking his blood, they like run by and like bite him on the arm and stuff, and you can't see them. Dumb. Don't like it. But again, I want to give every movie a chance, so I'm like, okay, kind of interesting. I'm usually not the biggest fan of like this type of intro in a movie. Where they're setting it up for like halfway through the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think because I'm sure there's a ton of examples that disprove it, but the way it was executed felt very much like, okay, now we run the credits and then the TV episode begins.
So far, every...
You know what I mean?
Yeah, every one of these movies so far starts with something that's at the ending.
Yeah. The last one had a cool beginning.
Yeah. And then the first one was more of her narration.
Yeah.
Beginning and ending.
So then, and then it shows our two main characters out in a field laying down, and there's this really bad song by Howard Shore where it just sounds like they set up a mic in his living room, wherever his piano's at, and he was just like, I'm just going to play some piano for the next 3 minutes. It doesn't make me feel anything.
No.
Not good.
Very cheesy. Very TV feeling.
And then we meet her dad, and they're having these conversations, and I turned to Jordan and I said, oh my gosh, he is just short of asking, are we done, after every line. He is so over being in the movies.
Yeah.
And I know it kind of works because his character is supposed to be like annoyed with Edward, but you can, if you're watching these as closely together as Jordan and I, you can see there is a definite change in his performance where he's like, I don't want to be here. I want to go home.
And I thought too while we're watching this movie, because like we've already stated, Robert Pattinson notoriously has some really hilarious videos or interviews of him bashing the series.
Yeah.
And and you had mentioned like maybe in the first movie in our episode that like he seemed to be really into it from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I'm curious because allegedly him and Kristen Stewart were together for a while during the series, and I wonder if their breakup really soured him / also opened his eyes to how ridiculous all this is.
When did they break up?
I don't know, but I'm pretty
okay.
sure they broke up before this was over. I could be wrong about that. That's just what I'm like, my theory of these contributing factors to how we got to this point.
Yeah.
Was part of it maybe he had a really terrible association, which I don't even know like what the details of the relationship even were, or maybe they weren't even together. Sometimes I think they do that for publicity.
It sounds like I saw an interview with Kristen Stewart and Howard Stern, and he asked her about it, and it sounds like it was legit. So
Howard Stern gets the truth.
Howard Stern gets the truth.
So basically, the first 30 minutes of the movie is just reminding you everything that happened in the last movie, and pretty much, Edward was about to kill himself, and Bella had to go to Italy to stop him. And then they meet the Volturi, and then they're like, either you turn her into a vampire or she dies. And that's where we're at here. They've decided they're going to turn her into a vampire, but they're going to wait until graduation to do it, which gives Bella enough time to like say her goodbyes. Also, because she ran away from home to go to Italy, her dad does not like Edward anymore, which is part of his very bad attitude towards him.
Yeah. I'm trying to look up when they broke up.
Oh, okay.
It looks like shortly after the release of Breaking Dawn Part 2, Kristen Stewart and Robert Pattinson called it quits.
Oh, so they dated throughout.
After the actress cheated on him with her Snow White and the Huntsman director,
Nicholas Hoult.
Rupert Sanders.
The director. I remember when that happened.
Whoa.
And it was like such a scandal. I remember that.
When the couple did make up a few months later, they eventually broke up for good in May 2013. Ooh.
I remember that.
That's weird. Okay, well.
Gross. So to go back to the movie and not dwell on that. So Bella's dad is like, look, you don't have to be grounded if you hang out with your other friends. Like Jacob, wink, wink. His dad's really worried about him.
Okay.
Wink, wink. Go talk to him. And then it's just like, yeah, Jake's not really answering her. She's tried to reach out to him. He doesn't really care. And then I think he shows up or something.
She goes over
goes over there, and he's being really like whatever about everything.
Yeah.
And basically like he knows she's going to be a vampire. So he's just like, you're making a terrible decision. Blah, blah, blah. We meet a girl werewolf, which I said in the last movie that it's dumb that there are no girl werewolves. I was wrong. And I'm glad I was wrong. And we discover, or we learn that werewolves imprint.
Yeah. So this imprinting thing, is so stupid.
Yeah.
It's so dumb. and it's so ill-defined. I don't even understand it after watching the movie. So what did you take from the imprinting?
Here's where I'm confused about it. And maybe I just wasn't really listening because I didn't care. But her name was Lena or something, or Leia or whatever. The girl werewolf.
Princess Leia. Are we talking about Star Wars?
Yeah, just call her Leia, even though that's probably not her name. So her and Sam, head honcho wolf, were together. And then he met his now fiance and dumped her for her. And from what I understood is I thought that he had imprinted on the Leia girl. But I'm wondering if what he actually said was he imprinted on this girl later, like while they were together. And that's why he dumped her. And that was basically his explanation of what this is. And basically imprinting on someone is falling in love strongly. Everyone feels it. Most people
it's so weird too, because then she goes, have you imprinted on anyone, Jacob? And he goes, you'd know.
Which is like, does that mean that you're just about to start humping me all of a sudden? Because that's what because they're wolves, it sounds like imprinting on someone is just like, yeah, I'm going to mate with you for life. Get used to it. That's what it sounds like.
Well, that's certainly his mentality throughout the entire movie.
Which is really lame. And obviously she has made her decision. She does not want to be with him. And throughout the movie, he manipulates her and I would argue sexually assaults her.
Yeah.
By
verbally,
3/4 of the way into the movie.
Well, and so the whole thrust of the movie is that one vampire's coming back, Bryce Dallas Howard, and they need to protect her from them.
Protect Bella. So the teams are gonna team up, like Jacob and Edward's team. There's not only that they haven't even really figured that out yet. What's going on is like there's a vampires are killing people in Seattle, and that's pretty close to Forks or whatever, and they're like, we probably need to do something about this, and we're like, oh, the Volturi will take care of it, but then they don't take care of it, and then basically they get to Forks, and by that time they know that Victoria has created this army to like throw them off the scent of her or something, and then the Volturi does finally show up after everyone's dead.
Yeah. And they're like
very convenient.
And then they just kill this random girl for no reason at all. There is a reason, but you have to really read between the lines.
Yeah.
When you explained what you thought, I was like, nah, I don't accept that.
Yeah.
So okay, since you brought that up, we're just gonna jump through this movie. The Volturi, their motives, I cannot make heads or tails of it. Well, I don't understand what they're doing. And if they're already corrupt, why don't they just make their own army? That's what I don't get. So they're sending someone else to do it. And then along with all of that, the Cullens are still just living in Forks. In the last movie, they had to move because everyone was suspicious of Dr. Cullen being too old for how young he looks. And they're just back in this movie, not addressed.
Well, the real reason was because Edward needed to get away from Bella for her safety.
Yeah. Okay.
But now they're back.
And it also doesn't, besides just the conflict of this movie, why does she need to be hanging out with the werewolves? I know it like throws off the scent.
I think it's literally the scent.
But I mean,
literally the scent.
They're going to have to show down with them anyway. And they beat, when the showdown happens in the end of the movie, it's so they defeat them so easily. I don't even think they suffer a casualty. And I know they had the werewolves to help, but I was like, yeah, the vampires could have done it by themselves. From what you presented to me, that this movie, none of it has to exist because we're just treading on the same ground of these two people fighting for Bella. That there's nothing new here.
Yeah, by this point, the Victoria storyline is very. I mean, most of the time, it hasn't served a purpose. Yeah. In the last movie, it's like it was a subplot that you forgot about. And this movie has become the forefront of what's been going on. But then there's a Volturi now. And it's so confusing because she's just trying so hard to Stephenie Meyer's trying so hard to set up things. But I feel like she, as not a good writer, she's just writing things and is like, yeah, that'll come back around to later. But it never did because she's not a good writer. And another huge thing that's going on in this movie is Bella wants to have sex with Edward so bad.
Yeah.
Like so bad. And Edward is pretty much like, we can't have sex before we're married. We have to be married first. That's a condition. And then he presents her with one of the ugliest engagement rings I've ever seen. I swear the prop person went down to JCPenney and bought it, not even over the counter.
I still think Magic Man, or they were at like a bowling alley and they did one of those quarter things.
It's very
and it popped
bad.
out
It's bad.
the plastic.
Yeah. It's not even like, it doesn't even fit the time period. It's not even a victim to time.
No.
It's just bad. It's costume jewelry. Anyway, so where are we at this point? I don't even know.
So I just want to point out Jake and Edward are very much like, oh, I hate you. I hate you more. I hate you mostest more. And then she goes, from now on, I'm Switzerland. There's also a Team Switzerland amongst the fans.
That's lame. That's like being Team Platypus.
Jake has his shirt off almost the entire movie.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really make sense. I mean, he wore it. I don't know.
Also, at one point at the graduation party, he gifts Bella a wolf bracelet charm thing that she like wears later on, and it's such a high school thing. All of this, it's just all high school drama, because I don't even want to talk about it. It just makes me mad because it's so petty. So. Later, so we've talked about all these other things. Let's just get to the tent part so we can scream for a little bit longer.
Let me fill in a couple of gaps before we get there. So first of all, I wish the werewolves had more to do with classical Native American skinwalkers, which are like this mythology that there's these type of people that can turn into animals, and they're very scary. They're like horror. Read up about them. They freak you out, for me at least. And the werewolf thing is like halfway there. Just go all the way with that. Just make them skinwalkers. Let them be different animals and stuff.
That'd be like their spirit animal.
The wolves don't look as good this movie.
No.
I think part of that is they're just working with... I know the budget's a little bit bigger, but the last movie had like a couple of scenes with wolves. This one has a lot.
Yeah.
There's a tribal council scene that's very hilarious because... The chief of the werewolf tribe is telling this story that it's been inferred that he has told this many times, and everyone is like on the edge of their seat. Kind of silly.
Yeah.
Nitpicky, but silly. And then Jacob, in love with her, he kisses her against her will, and she punches him. And then he says she's not sure what she wants.
Yeah, he tells her that.
And he keeps saying, you don't know what you want and stuff. And all that stuff, it's just so like, it's so dominant and like this like male perspective that's really gross. Don't be like Jacob.
And we already said in I think the last episode too, like New Moon very much conveyed like this story is about a girl seeking men the whole time.
Yeah.
Like she never like seeks the counsel of a woman. Like, truly, she never does. Like, even high school friends, she doesn't even really respect them because they don't know what she's going through.
Yeah.
And this movie, same stuff, but even more than that, one of the men that she is, like, goes to a lot is telling her what she wants. Granted, by the end of the movie, that's obviously she still chooses Edward, but still it's like... It's like throughout the movies too, Edward has said things like, I would die for you. Like, if you died, I would kill myself. You are the most important person to me. I can't stay away from you. Like, just really weird things to say to a girl.
Yeah.
Wrong. So can we go to the tent part too?
Well, I did want to mention Rosalie, who's one of the vampires. She has this flashback scene where she describes how she became a vampire. The one fun thing about all the flashback scenes is you forget that they're like from different time periods. So it flashes back and she's in like...
the 40s or 50s. Or no, like the 40s.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And it's so weird because there's an implied rape in this sequence.
I think implied gang rape.
Yeah. And it's like, it's just this really uncomfortable feeling because you're just thinking, this is PG-13. Or it might... No, it can't be PG.
No, it's PG-13.
But it's intended for teens, and it's not dealing with these issues in a way that maybe would be helpful to teens or something like that. It's just kind of a gross, like kind of over the top graphic way of dealing with it, and I think it's the same as like if in the new Black Widow movie that's coming out, she was like, there did a flashback and she's like, yeah, and then I was raped by all these guys. You know, you'd be like, what? In a Marvel movie? You don't, that's weird.
Yeah.
You know, it was very odd. Don't like that. There's the scene where we're almost to the tent, but there's also, it's just really graphic where they're like about to have sex.
Yeah.
And then they don't. But it's just the way it's handled is so graphic. It's very weird. Now we're at the tent scene.
Wait, and every time Edward talks about it, looks like he's about to puke, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's like, do you like her though? Because it doesn't seem like it. Looks like you're trying to force yourself to. But then there's a scene where the vampire Jasper's like training the wolves on how to fight vampires, and we go, and I'm just like, he talks so strange. Like it's like he has a quarter of an accent. And then we get to see his flashback and discover that he was in the Civil War in the South. And it's like, oh, so the actor is trying to do a Southern drawl, but I think he's too insecure to commit to even doing it halfway. Because you can do it halfway. But I think he's too insecure and inexperienced to actually do it. And he sucks. Okay, so tent scene. So the war is about to happen. The battle is about to happen. And Edward and Bella are up in the mountains, and then Jacob's there like keeping watch, and then Bella is like so freezing cold, and Edward can't make her warm because he's freezing. So Jacob has to take off his shirt and warm Bella up with his body heat. And then there's like this Jacob and Edward scene where they just talk about stuff, and Edward's pretty much like, if she chose you, she chooses you. Like, I would have to let her go, which is like, I understand what she's doing. You know what I mean? Like, I understand that part, but it's also like, but you almost killed yourself.
Yeah.
For her. Not for her, but because of her. You almost killed yourself in the last movie. I don't think you would just let her like go with him if that was her choice.
Yeah, and it's also really weird because she's just sleeping and Jacob is spooning her.
Uh-huh.
And they're just talking about her, and he's like, yeah, she's stupid, she's really dumb, she sucks, she doesn't know her own feelings, I know what's best for her, and you suck also.
Yeah.
Stop.
So then
Stop.
The next morning, like Jacob, so they're all up, whatever. Jacob is about to go into battle, and Bella really doesn't want him to. She's like pleading with him, please don't, because she doesn't want him to die. And it gets
once have I thought that she's fallen for Jacob in this whole series.
Not a point, not at any point, not at any time. But she's so desperate that she's like, Jacob, kiss me. I mean it, kiss me. And they make out in front of Edward, and it's just like, ew.
Well, not in front of, he heard his thoughts.
But still, it's like he manipulated her into making out with him.
Bad. Very bad. Don't do that.
Clear.
It's
and
gross.
It's so wrong.
He's so gross.
Yeah.
And then there's a big fight. I will give the movie points on this. As far as fights go in a really bad movie, it was there was some stuff that was kind of interesting. The action was pretty clear.
Yeah.
It's not an amazing action scene, but I was like, oh, this is pretty good. And then Jacob gets hurt, and then he's fine. And then the movie ends on Edward and I almost said Rosalie.
Oh, and also Jacob told her that she, like, basically he's like, if you turn into a vampire, you're dead to me. And then she, like, it's at the end of the movie, and she's like talking to him, and it's like, he's like, you know what I said? And she's like, I know. Basically, I'm dead to you if I become a vampire and all this stuff. And he's like, yeah, maybe not. It's like, oh my god.
See, we don't accomplish anything new character-wise in this movie. What should have happened is she should have been turned into a vampire
by the end of this movie. Yeah.
But it should have been
what they were supposed to do.
There should have been a whole act where she was a vampire.
Yeah.
Not just like at the very end, she opens her eyes and they're golden.
It's so obvious that she's milking it for everything that it's worth.
Oh yeah.
This is the books too. Same thing. Because like at this point, you're just like, oh my gosh, I want her to be a vampire so bad. Like I want her to have what she wants so bad, but she's like dangling a carrot.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
It's not good, and it ends on Edward grabbing Bella's butt while they're making out.
Yeah.
And that's Twilight Eclipse.
A movie for teenagers.
It's so bad, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Sometimes I think when we don't like the movie, we make better episodes. Oh, it was so bad. And I can't believe that there's 2 more movies to go.
This movie put me in a bad mood. And I was like, I just got to I don't know, play the Switch for a little bit. And
Jordan
I couldn't even play
went
for
to
that
bed
long.
after the movie. And I think we were going to stay up kind of late. And she just kind of went to bed and didn't talk much after. Yeah. And I just reminded her that she's the one who chose this series, not me. So thank you for listening. Patreon.com/Micah McCaw. Get your episodes early. Also, well, let's see. What do we got? I'm sure there's a bunch of music stuff that I've released recently. I know that I did a live streaming concert and the bootleg sessions are out. It's not like great quality audio, but it's just me in my apartment playing these songs acoustic, totally different versions. You can sign up for as little as $3. Yeah, do it.
Also, I had a short story recently published in the Show Bear Family Circus. I think you can just Google it.
Show Bear Family Circus.
Yeah, and it's Dreambox by Jordan Marie McCaw.
Oh, give that a read and tell us what you think, and make sure and comment, guys. We want to pump up our 11 comments. Let's get to 20. I know there's a few of you, Olivia, who hasn't commented yet. So, Olivia, we're waiting. All right, thanks for listening, guys. Next week, it's Breaking Dawn, and we're going to have another guest on, our second guest ever. Breaking Dawn Part 1 with special guest. So, see you next time.
Bye.
This Eclipse gear is so cool. I know, right?
That's ridiculous. It can't be that cool. Let's see.
Now in BK Kids Meals, crazy cool Eclipse gear. 1 premium per kids meal. Now with BK Fresh Apple Fries.
Team Edward!
Drop 'em, Grandma.
Now at Burger King.